When I go into a meeting or I show up, am I feeling a tight feeling in my tummy, or am I feeling an expansive feeling in my chest? Am I thinking of innovative thoughts, or am I thinking like I really need to sit down and be quiet and not mention anything?
Our bodies, our hearts, our spirits tell us so much important information. It's even in a business context.
And work is something that should complement your life, not send the domino effects of creating a negative effect to your physical, mental health, and also your relationships. Well, when you see conflict in your team, what is the adult that little child really wanted to show up in that moment? That little child, who did they need in that moment? And then how can you show up as the leader that child needed? Failure is only a mistake if you continue to do it.
Fresh insights into what it means to lead today. Hi, welcome to the Uncommon Leadership Podcast. Here's what's about to go down. I am just about to start a conversation with a guest, and to start that with a question that they invariably tell me they have never been asked before. And then we'll see where the conversation goes from there. Because this is not a march through 20 questions and then we're done podcast. This is a start with a question that gets my guest and me thinking, and then discover where the conversation goes from there. If you are looking for a curious, introspective, thoughtful, probably funny, hopefully lots of great stories podcast, then this is very much up your alley. I'm Michael Hunter, and I will see you in the episode right after, now. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead in this crazy world today. Joining me is Hacia Atherton. Hacia is the author of The $1 Billion Blind Spot, a global speaker, and the first female CEO of a major plumbing company in Australia. After surviving a near-fatal horse riding accident, Hacia turned personal adversity into a global mission by founding Empowered Women in Trades and championing a new era of leadership grounded in psychological safety, inclusive strategy, and bold cultural reform across male-dominated industries. Welcome, Hacia.
Thank you for having me.
I've been looking forward to this all week. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything that you do might be a valuable approach?
It was more early on in my career. I was in the financial advising industry at the time, and back in Australia, when I was in the industry, it was not very much set up to align with my values. So a lot of financial companies that were employing financial advisors also produced the financial products that you were, selling to your clients. And the company I was working for, a lot of their products didn't actually align with the needs of my clients. My clients were in the horse riding industry, the fashion industry, creative industries, and there was different products out there that really supported them. So I would always show up along my values of what's the best thing for my client and put them in the right kind of products that really suited their needs, their stage of life, and everything like that. But there was a lot of conflict back at work because I wasn't necessarily pushing the organization's products or pushing a certain product when I felt there was no justification to push that product on to the person. So all of a sudden I felt like this pressure of like, well, am I doing something wrong? Where does my, I guess, loyalty lie to my employee, to my clients? What's happening there? And I started to become, I guess, like very distressed about coming to work, worried about having my weekly catch-ups with my managers, worried about submitting reports, getting to the point where I was writing plans for my clients, getting very caught up in what to do. And it was giving me a lot of weight because I didn't know how to show up and who to show up in that moment. So that was probably the very early stages in my career where I realized how taxing and that invisible weight of that labor when you can't be your authentic self at work, you can't show up with your values being aligned between the organization and supporting your clients, and that real internal conflict really gives such a heavy weight to your whole entire life.
What sustained you as you experienced all that internal trauma?
Early on in my career, I definitely didn't handle it the right way, so more of avoidance. I would go out for Friday night drinks and probably stay out a little bit too late or something like that, or trying to distract myself with like taking on other friends' problems and dramas and kind of hiding in their space and really taking on the weight of someone else's problems, or just looking at different ways to distract myself as a bit of a coping mechanism as well. Then later on in life, which I will touch base on the horse riding accident, that's when I really started to learn the tools through positive psychology, how to really regulate your nervous system, use the tools to really shift your mindset. And I think over my career, it was just the discomfort of being in places where I couldn't be my authentic self. I just couldn't take that anymore. So slowly, I moved to areas where I could be my authentic self. I then gained more courage and everything like that in that space. But early on in my career, I definitely didn't handle it in a healthy way.
What helped you recognize that this wasn't sustainable and you had to make a change?
I'm quite a future-focused person, so I'll often look into the future and go, like, what's my life going to be like in 5 years, 10 years time? So when you're in that early 20s, I was thinking like, how can I sustain this when I'm in my 30s and maybe in a committed relationship and I'm taking this weight or this behavior home to another partner and another human and affecting them that way? Or if you do end up having children or different things like that, is this how I want to show up as a partner, as a mother? But even my friends, it's like, do I really want to show up in my life this way for other people as well? And then looking at how I wanted to live my life. Work is a piece of the puzzle of your life. But when I was in environments where I couldn't be my authentic self and I was feeling that invisible tax and that invisible weight of having to mask up and do different things like that, it was affecting my whole life because it comes to weekends and I just want to hibernate. I would just want to sleep. I wouldn't want to, I wasn't eating properly, or I was, trying to have a lot of sugary food or caffeine to get my body through what I was dealing with. So I kind of step back and be like, wow, this is affecting my sleeping, it's affecting my eating, it's affecting my relationships. And work is something that should complement your life, not send the domino effects of creating a negative effect to your physical, mental health and also your relationships. So for me, that's where I was like, wow, I really need to take control of what I can take control of, and that is my career. That is how I show up as a leader. That is the people that I align my values with. And just because they're my values and they're not aligning with a leader or an organization doesn't mean that their values are different, wrong. It's just there wasn't an alignment. So I really started to, anchor a little bit more into that intuition, listening to my body, listening to my nervous system. When I go into a meeting or I show up, am I feeling a tight feeling in my tummy, or am I feeling an expansive feeling in my chest? Am I thinking of innovative thoughts, or am I thinking I really need to sit down and be quiet and not mention anything? So I really, over the career, have learned to understand what my body is doing, what my mind is doing, and how it's reacting to that external environment, and then aligning my actions with that.
That combination is so critical. Our bodies, our hearts, our spirits tell us so much important information. It's even in a business context. It's not just what our brain is telling us, what logic or allegedly objectiveness is telling us. What has allowed you to trust that, where doing that is so hard for so many people?
Yeah, so I use a very robust self-reflection process. So when I do feel something in my body, tight chest or nausea or just a form of discomfort in my body, I will step back from the situation and reflect. And first of all, go, did this situation trigger a past memory, a past feeling? Does this situation feel familiar? And our bodies is very, very good, of doing that. As a little kid, if you touch a hot kettle, your body will remember that hot, a kettle on the stove hurts when you touch it. So you're going to be a lot more wary around picking up the hot kettle on the stove. So our bodies have that memory of protecting ourselves. So that's the first thing I do. I step away from the situation. I go, is this a reaction because of past experiences and there's something in the person's tone or physical build or something that happened in how an email was sent that's actually triggering a past situation? And if I can say that, then I very much look at, okay, what wound and triggers do I need to heal and that I'm actually reacting from? And it's a historical reaction, not a present reaction. If I, through the reflection, understand that there is a present reaction and that might be a pattern. So this is the third or fourth time an email has been sent that way or a person has addressed me that way or something like that. So I can actually identify there's a pattern in the external environment from me that needs to be addressed. I then will ask myself the question, am I showing up in any way to trigger this pattern in the other person? Am I being short? Am I being dismissive? Is there something in my self-leadership that's actually contributing to this pattern and they might be reacting to me? So it's this kind of self-evaluation, yes or no, self-reflection, asking ourselves those really, really tough questions. Sometimes I do find that I haven't handled a situation properly. So that is that accountability of showing up and saying, hey, I realize that I have been short or I have been whatever the situation is that you feel that you've been. Take accountability for that. And then also say to that other person, I appreciate that you have been responding and reacting and matching my energy. So I take accountability. I need to shift my energy. And I understand, and I'm letting you know that you also need to shift your energy as well. Again, if you go through all of those questions, there's no past triggers, there is a present day pattern, you're showing up in a way that you're proud of showing up, and it is 100% that other person, that's where you've got to be very strategic and go, is this something I need to take to HR? Is this something I need to take to my coach or my mentor so I can get someone to advocate on my behalf? Is there someone in the organization that can help me navigate this situation? And don't react. Think, how do I respond to this situation? How do I become strategic in addressing this situation?
Having someone to advocate is challenging when we're the one in charge. When you're working with people in that situation, how do you help them find that someone else that can help them through, do the advocating for them?
Yeah. So as you get higher up the corporate ladder, you're right, there's less and less kind of people there. So sometimes your advocates are outside of your actual organization, and how I coach people to help those people advocate for them could be potentially role playing a difficult conversation and get that other person that you trust to almost play devil's advocate, and understand how the person that you have conflict or you're having difficulties with might behave, so that you're more kind of prepared on how you emotionally react when they say this or they shut you down or they dismiss you, and you're kind of role playing that, and the more we actually go through certain things in our brain, the brain feels it's a real situation.
1 second away from the episode to say, please go subscribe down below, hit the bell notifications so you find out when our next episode comes out. And now back to the show.
So the more you can show up with confidence when the real conversation comes through role playing with it, whether that's with a psychologist, a professional in this space, a mentor, or different things. There's so many different advocates in that space. And saying that advocate, if you're drafting an email or you're drafting a formal HR submission, get that person to read over it in a lens of like, how is this going to be perceived? Make sure that they're taking any overly emotional victim language out of it, which is hard when you're in it. And that's how you can get people to advocate, to really go, I want you to put your best professional foot forward. I'm going to look for areas where I think you're not showing up in that way and taking it to a personal thing, not a factual thing, etc., etc. And then the other form of advocating is helping that person shift into that positive mindset. So what can we learn from this situation? Even when you're at the highest level of distress, there's always something that we can take away. So when that person's advocating for you, they're advocating for you to become the best version of yourself. So how can that person support you? How can that person allow you to see how you can become 1% better from this situation? And how can this person protect you from when you're communicating to other people about this situation to make sure you're staying in a very professional behavior, tone of voice, etc., etc. So if you don't have someone inside your organization that can advocate for yourself, find those people that can really kind of advocate on the outside, even if you're the one doing the talking, you're the one submitting the reports, you're the one handling the situation. Go role play it with them, get them to proofread any documentations or emails, get them to stress test how you're thinking about this, and get them to really kind of help. How do you become 1% better out of this situation, and use it as actual personal and professional growth?
This idea that you don't have to do all the work yourself is really key. Even if you are the head of the company, head of the local division, you don't have anyone above you that you can go to or feel comfortable going to for help. Even if you're not in a situation where you can bring someone else in to physically stand beside you or do the talking for you, we can always go outside for that prep work, as you're saying, doing the role playing, doing the review of the memo we're about to send or the conversation we're planning to have, so that we don't have to do it alone. And it does the work doesn't all have to be done by us, even if we're the one who has to present it or have the conversation. And this, I find, extends into everything. If you are a frontline manager and you have to be the one to send the status report every week, that doesn't mean you have to be the one who put it together. If someone else on your team would love to do that for you, loves to tell a story about what everyone has done to help move the company and the customer forward, they can put it together. You don't have to do the work. It requires us, the leader, first recognizing that we might appreciate some help with something, then allowing ourselves to ask for the help or offer that task to other people around to see if anyone would like to help with it. And then to have the ability to step aside and let them do it, which is often the hardest part.
Definitely. And for leaders. And so if we look at our three basic psychological needs as human beings, it's a need for autonomy, a need for feeling competent, and a need for feeling a sense of belonging. So that competence pillar is so critical for our psychological well-being. And as we get higher and higher up in leadership, the more we ask for help or support, the more we often feel we're actually showing up as incompetent. And how I really work with leaders to reposition that is, the higher you get up in organizations, you're becoming the coach, not so much the team player. So your role is actually to show up and empower the rest of the team. So reposition this mindset of like, I'm asking help by getting someone on the team to write the report of what the activity is for the team this week or this month, etc. But if that person genuinely loves that, if that person's a social person, loves writing, and that really energizes them, you're not saying, I need your help. You're actually empowering this person to step up into a space that they genuinely enjoy and is adding value and excitement to their everyday work. And so you're creating space for your team to thrive. And this is where I think a lot of leaders, especially when they're transitioning out of being the team player to the coach, to understand our role is sometimes to step back, give opportunities, give responsibilities, give tasks, and then coach, tweak, guide, give feedback, understand what that person wants to achieve and where their current weaknesses might be, and then understanding you've got that knowledge to be able to upskill them. So as we get higher into leadership, our role changes from the doing to the mentoring and the inspiring and the empowering our team to do the doing for us, under the lens of the knowledge that we can pass on. So we almost turn from a state of executing and doing to a state of storytelling, guiding, mentoring, holding space for mistakes to happen, even though we can see them happening because we need that person to learn from their own mistakes, but we know we can get them back on their feet, we can teach them, we can guide them, and we can educate them. But as you get up to higher levels of leadership, if you don't flip that mindset, you start to feel incompetent, and that's when you start micromanaging. You hold the reins even tighter. You don't delegate, and your weeks go from 40 hours to 50 hours to 80 hours to 120 hours because you're so concerned about feeling incompetent that you're literally holding all of the workload, and then you end up burning yourself out. And your team is like, does this leader not trust me? Is this leader thinking that I'm incompetent in my job because they're not giving me the space to actually do my job? So then you create distrust in the team of you as a leader as well.
Yes. In the really challenging cases, a question I like to ask is, why do you have all these people working for you? Mm-hmm. Because the leaders who have the hardest time delegating, who have the hardest time making that reframe from asking or allowing someone else to do this means I'm not doing my job, to doing that task isn't my job anymore. They often have lost track that they do have all these smart people working for them who are there to make their will happen. That if the leader wanted to just do everything themselves, they would just do everything themselves and not have all these people underneath them. They have them there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so working through what that reason is often illuminating and may turn out to be not what the leader thought it was. Making these shifts requires recognizing that something isn't working, which can often be challenging, especially when the something that isn't working is something about ourselves versus something external. How do you help the people that you work with recognize what isn't working and then what they want to do about that?
Yeah. That conversation is a really uncomfortable conversation. So first of all, it's going back to what we were saying before about your nervous system, understanding and educating people around what their body might feel like when we start to have these conversations, and reposition that as this is good. We've created a safe environment. We're doing a one-on-one session, or you're doing these exercises at home. So you are in a safe environment, though your body is going to react in a way of feeling tense, making you uncomfortable. And that's when you know you really need to lean into those thoughts and lean into those conversations. So the first thing I understand is, what is that person's best way to communicate? Are they a journaler? Do they like to visually communicate? Do they like to draw, mind maps? Or what is the most effective way for them to communicate? And then almost have this conversation with themselves. So ask the question, what is something that I am weakest at? What is the thing that I'm really not good at doing? What's the thing I do not like doing? What are those moments that I'm like, I just don't want to show up and do that report or post that thing on social media, or really understanding where your weaknesses are. Then having the kind of conversation of, why do I have that as a weakness? Why does that make me feel uncomfortable? And get super inquisitive. Is it a self-doubt thing? Is it again, coming back to that sense of incompetence? Is it, well, I actually don't feel I have autonomy in this moment because it's my boss that's telling me I have to get on social media and post videos, or I have to send this report, or different things like that. So the discomfort is coming from that sense of autonomy being taken away. Is this discomfort coming from, I don't actually feel a sense of belonging when I'm doing that, or I'm leading that style of meeting, or I'm taking those kind of interview questions if you're someone that's publicly facing off your conversation. So it's going into that depth of really starting to get analytical and understand why. That's where a lot of that discomfort really starts to happen. And then the next question from there is like, okay, well, how am I showing up to avoid these discomforts? So do I shut down when this conversation comes up at work? Do I deflect it and push it onto someone else? What am I doing to actually avoid these behaviors? And is that behavior actually creating some kind of toxic environment at work? So for example, I know some people I've coached that have come from divorced parents, and they've grown up with their parents fighting. So conflict makes them very uncomfortable. And that's a weakness of theirs, of managing conflict in the workplace, because it brings them back to that young child, fearful state. So when conflict arises in their team, they kind of put their head in the sand, they ignore it, they kind of go, well, you guys will sort it out, or I'm just gonna turn a blind eye. There was a disrespectful tone or comment in a meeting, I'm just gonna let it slide. So that's actually perpetuating a poor workplace culture, and that leader is not showing up to manage the ecosystem of the team because they're avoiding a weakness because it's connected to a childhood memory. So once you identify that kind of spider web of why you're behaving in a certain way, it's then how do we kind of unpick that spider web? How do we change your mindset of like, well, when you see conflict in your team, what is the adult that little child really wanted to show up in that moment? That little child, who did they need in that moment? And then how can you show up as the leader that child needed? And that's actually a really self-healing process. And then as a leader, the more you're showing up for your team as that adult you needed when you were a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old child, the more you actually start to heal those kind of deep personal wounds that are affecting how you're leading today.
And one of the wonderful things about doing this is no one else has to know that this is what you're doing. And even if they don't, you still are helping them do the same work and do the same healing, which then radiates out in everyone. They're helping everyone around them do the same work, the same healing. And pretty soon, just by having this one conversation with yourself, you're helping the entire multiverse be a little more healed up. It's one of the most amazing parts of working on ourselves and our leadership, I find, is this osmosis effect of doing tiny bits of work ourselves, how it helps everything else be so much better.
Very much so. And I even do this exercise with some leaders. Write yourself a dismissal letter. So if you wanted to be dismissed by your boss or from your job, how would you want that received? So it's kind of, again, stepping into that empathy state of like, I have to fire myself. How would I like to be fired? What is the terminology? What is the wording? How would I like that situation handled? So as leaders, we all get to a point where we have to let someone go for whatever reason, a restructure, a disciplinary action. But the more you can practice that in a mirror version of how you would like that situation handled for yourself, then you can show up as a leader and execute it in that way, to whoever you're having to handle the situation. And that's another kind of, the more as leaders in our safe space we can practice uncomfortable moments, and use ourselves on the receiving end, the more we have the muscle memory and the intuition to handle those situations in real lives when there's another person on the receiving end. And you touched base on it before. This is doing it in a space where there's no judgment. It's only yourself. And you can do that whether you're someone that likes to record and then watch yourself do it, write it down, read it back, find out the way that you communicate best, communicate to yourself. And you can be messy, you can be imperfect, because it's just yourself. And then when you get to the point, and when I do these exercises, I can have a little bit of a laugh at myself. You know that you're in a really healthy relationship with yourself, and that will end up healthy relationships with your teams and colleagues.
Yes, that no judgment part is often the hardest, especially when it's just with ourselves. It
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Seems to be easier to be in a neutral space with others when way more than it is to be there with ourselves.
Yes. And even on that judgment topic, this is again what I use with my clients. When you're judging yourself, where is that coming from? Is that judgment fed because it was a seed that was put in your brain from your parents, from your cultural upbringing, from society, telling us what men and women should or shouldn't do? So a lot of my male clients, they judge themselves when they do show some emotion because society has told men that they need to be emotionless, and these strong kind of people that can just keep taking punches and keep going and not have any emotional feeling about all of that. So when my male clients are like, oh, well, I feel very emotional about that topic, or I'm judging myself for that, that's not them judging them. That's them buying into a story that society's sold them. So it's getting curious. When you're judging yourself, ask yourself, where is that judgment coming from? If it is coming from your value set and it is something that is authentically you, then yeah, you might have we're human. So you might have said something or done something, or your actions might have been something that you're not proud of. Then take that on board. Learn, apologize if an apology is needed, adjust your behavior, because that's the best way to apologize, is adjust your behavior. But if the judgment is coming from the opinion of society, a cultural background, something that your parents said, your grandparents says, your sister, your uncle, your best friend, that's their opinion, and that's for them to take the weight off that. And you just need to learn how to disconnect and go, someone else's opinion outside of me says everything about that person and nothing about me. So I'm going to disconnect from judging myself through someone else's lens.
All these expectations from others pile up on each other. And sometimes I use the illustration of a young child who wants to go out and play in the winter weather. They're like, all I need are shorts and a t-shirt and maybe some shoes. And one parent comes along and says, no, you need a winter coat, and you need this and that. And other friends, family, whoever else is in the house comes along and says, oh, to be safe outside, to be warm in this weather, to have a good time, you need this layer of clothing, this item of clothing, you need this toy to play with, this thing to form the snowballs together, what have you. And pretty soon, it's been half an hour, the kid is still not gone outside, and they can't move. All that they can do is be like this, because they have 18, 20, 30 layers of sweaters and coats and scarves and mittens, and layered on top of each other as they're trying to hold on to 30 different things that people say they need to have fun outside. Of course, the kid can't go outside now and have fun and roll around in the snow or do what they wanted, because they don't have the flexibility anymore from everything that's layered on. And all the judgment is the same way. The feelings we have about it may be the hardest to divest, because we have feelings about having the feelings. And one thing I find helps there dramatically is helping my clients recognize that there's no right or wrong about what we feel. It's just what it is. Yeah. And so holding in or not admitting or not recognizing or pushing away what we're feeling is the worst thing to do, to be able to have any autonomy over whatever situation is causing these to come up in. It's like having a runaway car and not being willing to say, well, I guess I have a runaway car, and instead, I don't even know what you would do instead.
And what you're touching base on and getting towards is an exercise I do called the circle of control. So even in that runaway car moment, it's kind of understanding and analyzing the whole situation, and you've got a smaller circle and a larger circle. What in that situation can you actually control? And you put that in. So you can definitely control your breath. You can control calling 911 if you think the car is going towards something where it's going to hit something, calling your insurance people. What you can't control, because you're a human, is the speed of the car, the direction of the car, where the car's going, what's going to happen. So in those kind of very high stress situations as leaders, I take a breath, breathe, anchor in, and very quickly go through all of the thoughts that are happening in your head and categorize them. Is it in my circle of control? Is it outside of my circle of control? And then you've just got to be very disciplined to laser focus in what's in my circle of control, what is my execution plan, what can I do right now? And some of those elements outside of circle of control, once you've executed a few of the things you can control, might come into the circle as well. So we get so caught up sometimes in uncertainty, in those elements that we have no power or control over, and we bleed all of our energy and our mental capacity into doing things and thinking through things that we cannot control. So that's where that real kind of emotional maturity and psychological strength and psychological success comes in the runaway car moment. What can I anchor myself into? What is certain right in this moment? And I'm not going to get caught up in the uncertainty, which our brains want to do because they're scanning all of the different options, and uncertainty is a very distressing thing to deal with. And that's where you've got to practice. And leadership is just like sport. Athletes out there go and practice every single day before they go onto the field. As leaders, we need to practice these moments and regularly do that circle of control situation in medium uncomfortable things, or as a routine every Monday morning. You do that for what you're facing for the week. So when the runaway car moment comes, your brain just naturally boom, 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 boom. This is what we're focusing on. This is what we're controlling on. This is step A. This is step B. This is step C. I can see those 3 steps. I'm not going to think about step D until I'm at step C, because at the moment, step D is unclear. So let's not even focus that far ahead, which is hard because as leaders, we're trained like, what's our 5-year plan, our 3-year plan, all of this kind of stuff. The higher you are up in leadership, the more you're working on the business, not in the business, and you're very much future orientated. So once you're at that higher levels of leadership, that's where you need to be more active in running exercises and running little drills on yourself of how you can anchor yourself into the present moment and psychologically focus on what's right in front of you and what needs to be done in this moment, because we spend a majority of our leadership time in the future, and it can be very hard to anchor high-level leaders into the present because we don't do it day to day.
That's really important because it's the now is the only thing we ever can really experience. And we have zero control over what happens after now. We have control over the process of how we are getting to the next moment, what the next step is, how we're doing that. We have zero control over what happens. We might have practiced and role-played and have the perfect way to have a challenging conversation with an employee. And if they come in having just learned that someone in their family has some horrible diagnosis, that conversation is not going to go the way you role-played. And there's no way to role-play every possible combination. As long as we are coming in with knowing the direction we want to go, the outcome we want to happen, while remembering that we have no control whether that will or not, then a lot of the anxiety over what's going to happen can fall away, because it's not our responsibility what happens. Our only responsibility is how do we show up? How do we go through moment by moment that situation?
Exactly. And as much as we cannot practice or train for everything, it's coming back to how do we teach ourselves to make sure we're not being reactive in situations and we're responding to situations. How are we making sure we're actually slowing ourselves down in those high pressure, high cortisol, high threat situations? So again, you never know what's going to come your way, but if you can train your nervous system of when you feel that stress spike, that cortisol spike, whatever your breathing exercise is you like to do, it's a natural response. I can feel the stress. I'm going to breathe for 60 seconds and do box breathing or different things like that. So there is little moments, especially in helping regulate your nervous system, whether that's like a fidget ring as well. If you know that when you start getting in high stress situations, you get a lot of energy and your body like shakes. Is there a fidget ring, or bringing some Play-Doh into that meeting, or different things like that? So you never necessarily know the external factors, but you can train your body and your leadership mindset of like, when I feel X, I know I have to do Y to make sure I'm staying in a physical and psychological state where I can respond to this situation and not react to this situation. And what I train leaders, the more and more you feel time is collapsing, what can you do to expand time? And we'll always have 60 seconds to breathe. We'll always can, again, say like, interesting statement, I just need a second to think about my reply. So actually buying time in a conversation instead of just going straight into that reply. Or again, saying, I actually don't have the data points or the depth to be able to answer this question right now. I need to step away, let me think about it for 5 minutes and come back, or I'll put this question to notice and I'll come back to you within 24 hours, or things like that. So again, when you feel a situation is getting out of control, how do you regain the control of that situation? And that comes through honesty. It comes from not feeling scared that you're being incompetent by saying, I don't actually have all of the information right now to properly respond to that question or that statement. Give me 24 hours and I'll come back to you with an answer.
We'll get back to the show in just a sec. But first, if you like what you're hearing so far, you're probably going to like my book, The Resilient Tech Leader, as well. Go to theresilienttechleader.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll give you a free copy of the PDF. And you can buy it from Amazon and everywhere else from there as well. Now, back to the show. And there are always things that we can do to help ourselves regain our equilibrium. Even we may not have control over anything else, but as you say, we always have control over how we breathe, where we put our focus, which of the many inputs we're paying attention to, and how we're acting on each of those. When people screw up, forgiving ourselves is often way harder than forgiving anyone else. And the higher up we are as a leader, the more likely we're going to screw up in ways that impact lots of other people. How do we get over that hump of paralysis from fear that we'll do something wrong and other people will get hurt?
Yeah. And that's a very, very difficult one. It's not a comfortable one. It comes, again, from taking real accountability, and we make mistakes as leaders. So first of all, it is giving yourself grace and really letting yourself feel the depths of that emotion. And that's okay. When we make a mistake, it's okay to feel that emotion off the dread, of the disappointment, of the shame, of all of these different feelings. What is not okay is to stay in those feelings. So it's first of all understanding what is the collateral damage of your decision. Where are the people on the firing line of this? Is it clients? Is it internal team? Is it your board? Is it your shareholders? Is it your investors? Where is the collateral damage of your decision? And that's your first place to go, and falling a bit on your sword, taking accountability. I own this mistake, not justifying it or excusing it, because that just kind of pushes those feelings away. Then what I always do is kind of a bit of a game plan. This is the problem I created from the move that I did. Here's some proposed solutions. And again, a true apology for your actions and your behavior is changing your behavior as well. And that real kind of moment, that light bulb moment of like, yeah, I'm the problem, is super uncomfortable. But what's interesting, when you come with vulnerability and accountability to whoever the collateral damage is and own it and say, yeah, I was the problem here, 90% of people will be like, wow, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's work together as a team to fix this collateral damage. And that's where your own self-healing starts to come. You're like, wow, I'm a good person that did a bad thing. And because I am a good person and a good leader, I have this community, whether it's inside your organization, your coaches, your mentors, other people that are going to come and help you clean up the collateral damage that you've done. So just because we're humans, just because we do something bad doesn't mean that we're a bad person necessarily. And then it's doing that real deep work. Where did that decision come from? What are we maybe our blind spot? What are we avoiding in how we're thinking about ourselves for showing up for people? And where did that move actually come from? So once you've kind of cleaned up the collateral damage as much as you can, you've apologized as much as you can, it's coming back into that safe space, wherever that is, whether that's with a mentor, a psychologist, or by yourself with your notebook, and start to do like the root cause analysis. Where did that behavior come from? And once you kind of have that aha moment of like, I understand this came from X, Y, and Z. I thought it was the right move with the limited data that I had. I did move too quickly on making a decision because I felt rushed or pressured, or I had to prove myself, or all of these kind of things. Once you can really, really unpack that, that's where the self-healing comes from, because you can give yourself a bit of grace going, I can understand why I made that decision. I've learned from the decision I've made, and I will hold myself accountable moving forward not to make the same mistake. Things are only a mistake. Failure is only a mistake if you continue to do it. If you adapt and pivot and adjust, it's a learning experience. If you keep showing up doing the same thing, that's a mistake.
Yes, I go a little farther actually, and I say if we make everything an experiment, then there is no success or failure. There's just outcomes. And
I love that.
to go into the cliche, then if we keep doing the same thing and keep getting the same outcome, how crazy are we?
Yeah.
Framing as experiments can take a lot of the judgment away because it's just a thing we're trying. We don't know what's going to happen. We may know what we hope will happen. We may be pretty confident what's going to happen. We don't know. The one thing we do know is we'll have more data than we do now. And then we can use that data to choose our next action. And as long as we keep doing that, we can get everywhere we want to go.
Yes, I agree. And that's a great mindset to be showing up with life, whether it's professionally, personally. If it's like, this is an experiment, we'll see where it lands and we'll take the learnings from it. In science, you do that. You experiment 1, you adapt, you learn. Experiment 2, you adapt and learn. Doesn't mean you give up on the goal of trying to achieve what you're achieving. And I think when I was learning to walk again after my horse riding accident, that's something one of my therapists said to me is always stay committed to the goal of learning to walk again, but adaptable to the approach. And you've got to go through that failing kind of process to be able to adapt and find the right approach to reach your goal. So always stay committed to that goal and very adaptable in how you achieve that goal.
For people who are committed to becoming a better leader and listening to our conversation, or maybe considering adapting and talking with you about helping them on that journey, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So my website is haciaatherton.com, so you can reach out through there. LinkedIn is another great way, Hacia Atherton on LinkedIn. And send me a message on LinkedIn or an inquiry through the website, and I'd be delighted to talk to you.
Sounds great. And your Workplace Culture is Cracking ebook is on your website as well?
Yes. So the $1 Billion Blind Spot, how much is your workplace culture costing you? And you can get that on Amazon and Barnes & Noble as well.
That's great. Thank you. And we'll have all those links in our show notes. What would you like to leave our audience with today?
As leaders, it is our responsibility to show up 1% every single day. So I really encourage all of the leaders I engage with on your drive home or sitting on the train home or however you get home from work, really take that moment to reflect, ask yourself some questions of like, where did I see I could have been 1% better today? Maybe that was being a little bit more patient with someone. Maybe that was leaning into a task that you were actually procrastinating and avoiding, and you've pushed it over and over and over again. So tomorrow you're going to show up and that's going to be the first thing that you do. So again, maybe it is reading a book that you don't usually read, or learning about someone's cultural background that's very different to your cultural background. Every day kind of reflect off, how did I show up today as a leader, and how do I make myself 1% better tomorrow?
Love it. Thank you, Hacia, for joining us today.
You are so welcome. Thank you for the beautiful conversation.
And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Hacia and I would love to know, how have you been 1% more yourself today? Thanks, and have a great day.